everybody to another episode of the Freedom Cafe, the Forum for Comics. Tonight we have a very, very special guest. I want to introduce y'all to my man, Preach Jacobs, everybody.
Hello, everybody. How y'all doing? What's
How you
up,
doing, man?
Yeah, thank you for having me, man.
Thank you for being on the show. I mean, I don't know where to start. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy to have you here, man. We got a Renaissance man here on the couch today. I just want to cut real quick. We're going to show a little bit of some of your work. If everybody will look on screen, just show a little bit of the music video.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Done by Brother Cleaner Productions.
Yes. Yeah.
Special plug, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah. I'm glad to have you here, man. Oh, God. I didn't even know where to start.
God, I guess it starts with me saying thank you to having me come from South Carolina to DC and you just being like the greatest tour guide to the city, you know. So, you know.
But enough about me. Let's talk about you, the Renaissance man. I mean, so much, and you know, I have to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Because you made my dreams come true, and I know you made a lot of people's dreams come true in Columbia,
Columbia, South Carolina. And by the way, my name is Preach Jacobs. For people who don't know my name, I don't know if he said it or not, because you know we've been hanging out. Colicon. Colicon was the nation's only comic book convention that incorporated the culture of hip hop. And it was the idea of saying like, hey, hip hop culture and comic book culture, they seem to work together. Because if you look at comic book culture, it's colorful, it's vibrant. You look at hip hop, hey, graffiti culture and it's competitive as hell, right? Where you have like rappers that are competing to be the best person. Comics and the comic illustrators that I know, it's the same type of thing. So it felt like this is a perfect marriage. And we did Colicon was a hip hop comic convention. We did it for a few years. We had like Talib Kweli. We had people from Ghostface to Phife from Tribe Called Quest to Dead Prez. And it was this thing that I felt like, hey, this is a marriage that makes sense. The cultures that make sense, that it's not a stretch to put these things together. And when people saw it, they felt like it made sense too. And it was just kind of cool to do. Like, it was just fun. So it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about trying to make this big thing. It was about like, yo, these are two cultures that I think make sense. Let's put them together, you know? And so I'm happy to be able to do that.
It was perfect. Amazing. And I will have to say thank you again. I don't know if you know this, and you know, everybody watching. Colicon was my very first story when I was working at Watch Fox 57 back in Columbia. That was my very first story, and my mentor, shout out to Daryl Hood, he told me, he's like, I want you to go out and I want you to do this story and I want you to actually be on camera. And I was like, big homie, I don't know if I can do it. He's like, no, you're going to do it. I was so nervous and whatnot, but
you was nervous to be on camera.
I was, yes,
really,
yes.
Word?
I
Okay.
was nervous. Yes, I was nervous to be on camera, but it came out great. It's on YouTube. You know, you guys can Google it and stuff like that. But it's a great story. It's popping up on screen right now as we speak and stuff like that. But I want to thank you. You know what I'm saying, my dude, for that one, because that was
absolutely.
It was so awesome.
It was fun. I mean, you know, I think what is really important now, when you see stuff like Black Panther nominated for an Oscar and won a couple of Oscars, right? It's not. I don't think it's as much as about winning the Oscar as much as it's showing the public that, hey, there's a representation of a culture that really wants to be seen. And I think that was the cool thing about something like Colicon. It's like comic book culture, hip hop culture. Hey, there's a lot of black people that really like comic books.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
There's a lot of black folks. There's a lot of black people that dig this. And hip hop culture, it makes sense. Because if you look at hip hop culture, the idea of like, hey, here's a rapper with a crazy nickname. You look at Wutang Clan. Hey, here's Ghostface Killer. You know, how is that any different than a comic book character that has a real name versus a superhero name? You know what I mean? And I think that as soon as you realize that those things are very, very parallel and they work together, then it becomes kind of just a no-brainer to put those things together. Colicon putting hip hop culture and comic book culture together is basically saying, hey, here's where I am, and here's a level of things that I wish I was at. And I think with comics, you have the ability to really, really embrace your imagination. You have the ability to say, hey, I wish I could fly. I wish I could. I wish I could like lift up these large things. I wish I could like take care of my debt. You know, if anybody want to help me out on my debt, I have a cash app, Mo Better Soul. Send me money. It's cool.
It is just popped up down below.
Right here, right
here.
You know, but I think that's something really, really cool where people are able to say, hey, you know, different cultures really embrace the same things. Everybody wants the same thing. Like everybody wants to be able to have the ability to get out of their daily, you know, situations that they're in. And it's not something that's just like a black or white thing. It's just like everybody wants it. Everybody wants to be able to have the ability to travel, have the ability to fly, have the ability to get out of the constant frustrations and irritations of their daily lives. And that's why I think hip hop is so comparable to comic book culture, and it makes sense to me. Like it's not a stretch, you know what I mean? Like I think like Colicon was one of those things where the public responded to it, and it was kind of cool. Like because I think anybody that was surprised about hip hop and comics working together are people outside of hip hop culture. Where I'm like, yo, like this makes perfect sense. Why shouldn't this make sense? You know what I mean? And I thought it was really, really cool to put those things together.
Absolutely. And when you put those things together, you also had special guests.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about some of those guests that were at Colicon?
Yeah, well, see, the cool thing about Colicon was that it was done in South Carolina, where it was a place where I don't think people expected a convention like that to exist, right? Where you have like, you know, bigger cities where, you know, you have New York and places like that where it'd be like, oh, this makes more sense. Like Colicon was in Columbia, South Carolina, a city where people wouldn't expect comics or hip hop for the most part. But the special guest, what I made sure was outside of the musical performances, I wanted to make sure that there was an element of programming where you have people talking about different things with the entertainment industry. And so every time we had it, we had like Pulitzer Prize winners, we had Grammy Award winners, we had people talking about different cultures. We had like people talking about comics and the music industry. We had panels talking about, you know, here's what it is to be black in America and working in arts, working in music, working in film. We had people that worked on, you know, the Boondocks and Black Dynamite, or talking about, you know, there's a model named Nakia Phoenix who's from Columbia, South Carolina, that was one of the nation's top supermodels. Talking about, hey, here's what it is to be involved in modeling culture and as a black woman in the entertainment industry. So it wasn't necessarily just about comics and just about music. It was about being black in entertainment. It was about what are the pitfalls or some of the highlights of being involved in those things and putting those things together and having the type of like programming to showcase, hey, you can do this too. Or, hey, if you're involved in this, here's the type of things that you have to be aware of. And to me, I felt like it was very normal. It's something easy to kind of put together. But when I started doing it, I realized how rare it was. I realized how rare it was to see programming to talk about, hey, let's do workshops about being black in entertainment. Let's do workshops about being, you know, black in the modeling industry, or workshops about being black into the artist world, as far as comic books or illustration or animation. And then you start to realize, wow, there's not many of us that are involved in here. You know what I mean? friend Sanford Green is a black illustrator that worked with Marvel Comics, that worked with DC Comics, that has a book now called Bitter Root, and it's really really black. Like it takes place in the Harlem Renaissance, and it's supernatural, it's musical, it's artistic, and it's really really embracing black culture. And somebody like Sanford worked with Marvel Comics, and he embraced the idea of saying, let me create something brand new. Let me embrace something that I can do on Image Comics where we can kind of control the content. And it's like, when I talked to him about it, he said it's the equivalency of taking the Harlem Renaissance and mixing it with Ghostbusters. Right? To
Wow.
have the, yeah, you know what I
Wow.
mean? So
Wow.
so it's even something as simple as saying black people can be black people can embrace the idea of being supernatural.
Man.
It's just dope. You know what I mean?
Man.
And not only just him saying that, it's him opting to walk away from the traditional hierarchy of the Marvel Comics, the DC. You know, because to him, you know, Marvel in its own branding is the top of the food chain. But he's like, yo, if I go to Image, I own my property. I go to Image, I can control my narrative, and I think there's something really fly about that.
Yeah.
And that's what's kind of one of the things what ColdCon was about. It's like, yo, like black people really like dig this. Like black people have imaginations, man. Black people really like the idea of supernatural stuff or comics or superhero ideology, and I think that to be able to embrace that idea of saying, you know, we're just like everybody else, you know, but we want to see ourselves on screen. Yeah, you know what I mean? We want to see ourselves on TV, ourselves in books. And I don't think there's anything weird with that. And I think like ColdCon's one of those things that kind of embrace that concept, you know?
I agree. And I love the fact how when you put it together, you know, we had the arts, we celebrated the arts, you know what I'm saying? But we celebrated both types. We celebrated, you know, graffiti, comic books, but we also celebrated music.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the music section? Because that was, I mean, you fulfilled another one of my dreams, which was taking a picture with Ghostface. He clowned me, by the way.
What did he say?
So when I was waiting in line to go get my picture done with them and everything like that, there was these two dudes behind me. And granted, I had just got like an iPhone, so I'm still new to the technology or whatever, right? So, you know, of course, I'm planning, making sure that, you know, they know how to turn it on and everything and take the picture. So I get up there, and I had just bought a cell phone case for my iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And it said Stark Industries
Mm-hmm.
on my case, right? So I give the dude my phone or whatever, and I have my whole stack of Ghostface CDs, like my whole collection and stuff like that. And then he's going through, he's signing them, he's like, yo, word, you know what I'm saying, kid? Like this one right here, you know what I'm saying? This Ghost Dini, this is one of my favorite ones right here, God. I was like, oh, man, you know, I'm trying not to be a fanboy. I was like, yeah, appreciate that. He's like, and you know what, this one right here, kid, this is another good one right here, you know what I mean? I was like, well, this one right here, you know, I had a story behind a couple of them, like this one, I think it was Supreme Clientele.
Mm-hmm.
I used to listen to that one when I used to stand watching Iraq, and he was like, were you was in the war? He was like, I was like, yeah. He was like, yo, respect. So he gives me dap or whatever. So like, we turn to go get the picture or whatever, and he looks, he was like, yo, where you get that case from, God? Where you get that case from? I was like, I got it from China Ghost, from eBay. He's like, yo, that's I fucks with that case, man. I fucks with that case. And so the dude's like taking the pictures and stuff like that. He's like, I was like, do you want it? And his homeboy behind him was like, man, Ghost ain't got no fucking iPhone, man. So everybody's like starts laughing, man. And then I was like, would you mind signing it? And he signs my case and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But it was like mad cool. And then I like tweeted it out, and he retweeted me. It's probably like the only tweet that I ever sent and stuff like that. I was like so happy that, you know what I'm saying, I got to meet my idol Ghostface. Shout out to Preach and shout out to Ghostface for signing, you know what I'm saying, my Stark Industries joint. And, you know, you guys can see it on screen right now. It's, you know what I'm saying, in a case. With the Dre Lopez pencil art and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to Dre, man. Dope artist and stuff like that at the patent office. But yeah, talk about the artist side, man.
Well, the funny thing about like the Ghostface thing was, you know, when we first did the first few years for ColdCon, I was an employee at an art museum in Columbia, South Carolina, And my goal was working in the programming department was, hey, I think as far as a dope program, let's do some art shit with some hip hop shit. And that was pretty much the pitch. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And having comic books as the backdrop. And when we did ColaCon, it was really funny because we had an exhibit at the museum at the same time that was a Rothko exhibit. And Rothko is one of those guys that is like the top of the food chain as far as American artists were concerned. He's in the same boat as like Jackson Pollock in the 1920s and 1930s. And we had this amazing exhibit with him. And Ghostface, when he came there, Ghostface made this kind of comment where he was like, yo, this is really dope that when people, he's like, when I got this contract and it said it was done at the museum, I thought the name of the museum was like the name of a club or something. he was like, I didn't realize it was an actual museum. So to have Wu-Tang music performing at the same time or in front of a Rothko exhibit, where Rothko is like, you know, your 20th century art, where around that time, for an example, Rothko and Pollock, they were selling ridiculous amounts of pieces in auction. So there was an auction maybe around 2011, 2012, where you had like Pollock pieces selling for like $120 million. And you had Rothko pieces selling for like $80 million.
Dang.
You know, we had an exhibition that, ironically enough, since we're in DC, that was on displayed with the love of the National Museum here in DC, the Smithsonian here. They basically like, yo, we'll lend you some of these Rothko, pieces. Rothko pieces were selling for like $80 million at the time. You know what I mean? And so like for Ghostface to come in there to make that kind of acknowledgement, like, hey, when we heard the museum, we thought it was a club. So to have Ghostface performing in a backdrop of Rothko pieces, I thought it was very interesting because when you look at great American art, you can't respect Rothko as a visual artist and what it means to American art and not embrace hip hop culture.
Absolutely.
Because it's the same thing. I give you a story, right? Mm-hmm. So shout out to Ninth Wonder. Ninth Wonder was talking to me about when he was doing his fellowship with Harvard University. And he said one of the dopest things that happened, it's the greatest story he told me. He said when he was at Harvard, I guess Harvard has like a museum within Harvard. And he said some lady was taking him around. She's like, I want to show you something. She takes him into like this museum area, and they have like this vault area with all these like high-end shit that you would have, kind of on wrap. And he said that there was this thing where, it looks like a movie where you have this big thing where you have to like twirl this thing around and open it up, and you see like steam come up, and you pull out these like big glass encased things or whatever. So he said that he's in there with this lady, and she's like, I want to show you something. She goes in there, she opens up this thing, pulls it open, and you see all this like steam and shit come out. And she pulls out this thing that's in glass, like this thick, and she pulls this out. And the first thing she pulls out, she's like, hey, this is one of the examples of the Gettysburg Address. Yo. When Abraham Lincoln was trying to figure that shit out, this is one of the rough drafts. It's like writing down hip hop lyrics. He's like trying to write this shit 4 scores, So this is one of the rough drafts of him writing this shit out. So she pulls his glass out, and this is basically, hey, this is Lincoln trying to figure this shit out. So she pulls this out, and she shows it tonight, and she takes it and she puts it back in there. And right beside it, she pulls another thing out with glass, and she pulls it out. And she said, and right here beside this Gettysburg Address stuff is one of the first flyers from Kool Herc doing concerts in New York in the 1970s.
Yo, wow.
And she said to him, to Harvard University, the Gettysburg Address is just as important as this. Yo, Right? You know what I mean?
Mind blown. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
That's crazy.
And when he told me that, it put it all in perspective. That an institution like Harvard is like, we get it. We understand it. And even me, and this is my first time going through the African American Historical Museum with the Smithsonian. You've been there a few times. Like, for me to see that, you understand it. Where you're like, oh, you have people that are in the higher echelon of the educational sphere saying, hey, we really respect hip hop. Hey, we understand the importance of it. Hey, this really has a cultural thing that shapes society. And
Absolutely.
and me being a young black guy from the South, my relationship with hip hop was basically like, yo, it's just something I grew up with. It's just something I know. And then when you start to realize that other people start understanding the value of it, then your approach becomes different.
This can't touch me, no, this can't touch me. I got hold me, no, this can't hold me. This can't touch me, no, this can't touch me. This can't red light, you got slim, and I feel energetic. I can show you my man, you always got aesthetic. Needless to say, boy, I'm back to the home, and then up to the right.
Now you just blew my mind with that Ninth Wonder story,
Mm-hmm.
and we're still on the topic of artists right now. Can we talk about Fife for a little bit?
Yes. So, for Kola Khan, here's one of the important things for me with Kola Khan was the ideal specifically was hip hop culture and comic book culture, where I had like different companies want to take advantage of it or be able to take it over. And my rules are two things. I say, hey, here's the two things I want. If your company wants to come in and take over Kola Khan and write me a check or something like that, the idea was like, number one, I wanted to be known that I was the founder. And number two, I want you to continue the tradition of hip hop and comics. Because that was the thing that was very important to me. Like, I didn't want it to be a situation where it's like, oh, hip hop and country music. You know what I mean? Like, because those things don't make sense. Comics and hip hop make sense to me. And the year that we got Fife from A Tribe Called Quest, shout out to Rasta Root out of Atlanta. The idea was basically like, you know, who could I reach out to that would respond? And Tribe Called Quest is my favorite hip hop group of all time.
Absolutely.
And the cool thing was to have Fife involved with it. It's like one of those things where, like, if you're doing events or doing shows or doing programming and you want national acts, you branch off small and then you expand. So for the example, at the time was I live in South Carolina and I'm going down this list of like who lives in something in a place where I can reach out to. And Fife lived in Atlanta. So I'm like, oh, Tribe Called Quest is one of my favorite groups of all time. Fife lives in Atlanta. Let's figure this out. Because if you're getting somebody that lives in Atlanta, then you really don't have to pay for flights. You know, the price kind of goes down. Like, yeah. And to have Fife involved was really, really dope. Not just the immediacy of having a dope artist involved with it, but kind of in hindsight when you look at it, and after Fife passed away, it's like, wow, like, he was involved with this. He understood it. And the funny thing about it, like, you know, South Carolina and Columbia in particular, it's an extreme college town. Yes. So like, you know, like USC football, Gamecock football, it's a big deal. And it was funny. It was like Fife gets into town, and him and Rosser was like, yo, Fife want to know, can he get tickets to go to the USC football game? And they're like, well, he really can't go to the game because he has to perform that night. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? He was like,
hey,
you know,
I respect this gangster.
Yeah, and we can figure to do both. Hey, but it was dope to have him there, and there's this image of his that I have, where shout out to Sanford Green from Columbia, South Carolina, who's worked with Marvel, DC Comics, and has built a route where he did this illustration for Kola Khan, where it has all these comic book characters that he's illustrated, but also has like an illustration of Ghostface Killer, who's also there for Kola Khan and Fife. And for this particular show, I had Ghostface sign it, and I had Fife sign it. Yeah. And it was really dope to have this autograph image where I have it framed, professionally framed. And when I do art shows, I have an art show that I just did in Columbia where it's all these like people that are, whether they're involved in Comic-Con or whether it's artists that have hip hop culture as their backdrop. So for an example, there's a guy that I work with who's based out of Charlotte that lives in Kentucky now. His artist name is the infamous John Claude, where his artwork is really dope, but the stuff he submitted to the show are these amazing collages of hip hop artists that's passed away. So for the art show, he has like an ODB image, he has a Sean Price image, or he has a Prodigy from Mobb Deep image, and it's just a really dope hip hop involvement with art culture, and the image that Sanford illustrated with an illustration from Fife and Ghostface, it was kind of dope because it's like, yo, here's this one of a kind piece that I can never get again. And it's priceless. It doesn't matter how much you offer me for it. I can't sell it. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that in a city like Columbia that doesn't, Columbia's not a backdrop that has so much black culture and hip hop culture in there. And a lot of times when we respect a lot of the shit that happens with hip hop, it's kind of in hindsight. It's one of those things where we don't appreciate it until after the fact. We don't think about it until, like, oh, wow, that was cool. And so after Fife passed away, that really broke my heart. I was like, wow, it's really dope to have this piece of like history of Fife being involved with something like this. And I think that became the backdrop of something like Comic-Con, right? Where it's just like, it's not your traditional hip hop show. It's not your top 40 hip hop artists. It's like, yo, I'm dealing with a limited budget and I want to bring artists that I listen to. I want to bring people that I fuck with. I want to bring people that's not your top 40 thing. So, you know, we had a Comic-Con, you know, Halloween party fundraiser, and it was like Black Milk doing a production set.
Yep.
And Pete Rock. You know,
I remember that.
You know,
Yes.
And it was like,
Yes.
yo, all right, let's do it. You know, and Pete Rock's set, he was DJing. At the end of his DJ set, he's like playing beats, like beats that you've never heard before, and it's like, you know, like, yo, send them to me. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
Like, and to me, as a programmer, I approach it from the Steve Jobs approach, where it's like, Steve Jobs' approach to art and what he did with like Apple was really interesting, right? It's like, for an example, his job wasn't to give people what they want. Like, if you would have asked me like 15 years ago, how do you want to listen to your music in the gym? I'm like, oh, I want to listen to my music on a portable CD player. That's what I wanted. But as innovators and creators, your job isn't to give me what I want. Because if I want to listen to it on a CD player, Steve Jobs is like, all right, I know you want your shit on a CD player, but here's the iPod.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yes.
So as an innovator, your job isn't to give me what I want. Your job is to show me what's better.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes.
And from a programming perspective, in a city like Columbia, in a city that has like really, really deep race relations and different, like, you know, it's slow to like cultural development and stuff like that. My idea was like, I don't want to give people what they want. I want to give them some dope shit that they can appreciate.
Absolutely.
Later on. You know, be like, oh, okay, he brought these people here. And I think that that's the only way you can move stuff forward in the artistic community. You know what I mean? It's like, my job isn't to give people what they want. My job is not to give people shit when they're ready. You're supposed to go beyond that. You know what I mean? It's like, you're not supposed to be ready for the iPod. Like I'm gonna show this shit to you, and you gotta adjust accordingly. And I think that was kind of the coolest thing that kind of happened with that type of programming, and that's kind of controlled the way I think about doing shows and doing events. It's like, yo, Is this non-conventional? Is this cool? Is this something that everybody is doing? Like, for an example, we're in DC now, and shout out to producer Tall Black Guy. Like, I'm doing shows in Columbia now where it's like, yo, we're not trying to do events where we're trying to get 100, 200, 300 people. Let's do cool shit where we invite 35 people to show up for a show. Make it extremely, I would say, intentional.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you reach out to people that appreciate these very, very high-end personal experiences. And you can have somebody saying, hey, I don't mind spending $35 to see Tall Black Guy, have really high-end alcohol and food, and just have this really cool experience. And it's not 200 people. It's 30 people. It's 40 people. And that kind of is the approach that I have now. And that's where Colicon kind of comes in, where it's like, it's not about the amount of people. It's about having a curated experience of showing stuff to people that really, really appreciate it. Yeah, you know what I mean?
That's it.
You know?
It's flawless. Could you talk to me a little bit about, you know what I'm saying, the marriage with you being, you know what I'm saying, a hip hop artist yourself?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, with comics and how that works.
I think the funny thing is, when people talk about programming and ask me about programming, my approach is always, as a programmer, I want to do some shit that I would like to go to. And that's it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, would I want to go to this show? Would I want to go to this event? You know what I mean? And we're not talking about a perspective of, is this a top 40 artists on the radio? Is this something where, a lot of girls will be at? Like, it's just like, nah, like it's just some dope shit. You know?
Exactly.
And if you answer that question of, is it the type of environment, community, surroundings that enrich a community that is fulfilling a void, you go after that. And Columbia, in particular, for people that don't know about my city, it's like Columbia, where we were doing a lot of these shows, we had like a state house that had a Confederate flag out there. Mm-hmm. And when you had a Confederate flag out there, it discourages, rightfully so, a lot of people that want to come out to the city. You know what I mean? Like, as far as programming is concerned, if you're a black programmer, you don't want to be anywhere where there's a Confederate flag, like, nearby.
Right down the street. Yeah.
And I get it. I live there. So I don't take it personal when people are like, nah, we ain't fucking with that. And I'm in a city now where the Confederate flag from my state house is taken down, but it was taken down reluctantly. It wasn't taken down, put it like this, it wasn't taken down because the legislation was like, you know what? We think it's wrong to have this flag here. It was taken down after Dylan Roof shot up a black church in Charleston. It was like, oh, we're forced to take this down. Mm-hmm. So that's a totally different conversation.
Right.
It's like my city did the right thing, but they had that hand had to be forced on it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so now there's this dynamic of dealing as a programmer prior to Dylan Roof and the flag being up and post flag being up. Because after the flag came down, you have companies and businesses saying, oh, we want to come to Columbia now that the flag is down. Now that it doesn't fuck with our branding of being associated with this as much. So, and it's interesting because I haven't done a Colicon since the flag been taken down. Because there was a lot of blowback that I've had with like trying to get sponsorship and trying to get money. And you would have a lot of local money like, oh, we don't want to deal with this because it's hip hop culture. And we're not putting money towards a hip hop show. You know, but to me, now that the flag is being taken down, maybe the conversation has changed. Maybe I can get national funding with people saying, oh, now that this flag is gone, we're willing to come to your city now. You know, right. And those are conversations that I'm interested in having. You know, those are conversations that I think is dope. That it's like, damn, when I went to the museum today with you, there was a quote. Who said it? I think it's, what's that? Mary Baraka. He said, as an artist, don't talk to me about being the singer because I'm the song, right? That's some hard shit, right? That's some hard shit
right there.
Yo,
I'm telling you,
that's some hard shit. And so you have to look at yourself as a programmer the same way, in the sense of, yo, like, it's not me throwing a show. It's me moving the culture forward in my city.
right?
And it might seem like a grandiose concept, but it's a big deal. It's like, yo, doing events is a responsibility. It's not just doing a show. Like maybe in some cities, maybe like this city, when people come here and they don't think twice about it.
Right.
It's totally different. But in a city like Columbia, South Carolina, where there's race relations, we just recently got the flag taken down. We got all this racism that's there that we're trying to overcome. To be a programmer, especially black programming, you're a community activist whether you want to be or not.
Absolutely.
So the programming that I do, I have to think about my people and like, how does it speak to us? You know what I mean? Or at the very least, am I holding my people accountable? Am I doing something where the culture is being moved forward? And those are the conversations you gotta kind of have. And it's so it's like, it's not about doing a show for fun. It's about, I'm the movement. Like, you have to be the movement to push the conversation forward. And I think the best way of doing that is hip hop culture. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like, hip hop is simultaneously the thing that's discriminated against the most with programming or facilities that embrace programming. It's discriminated against the most, but it's the most wanted.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's like
Absolutely.
it's like hip hop culture is purchased 80% by white folks. You know, like they embrace black music, they embrace hip hop, but a lot of times they listen to hip hop music, but they don't want the people that make hip hop music to be in their facilities, right? You know what I mean? So it's really weird. It's like, oh, we love listening to all this rap shit, but we don't want the people that make this rap shit to be here. And that's kind of the struggle that I think cities like Columbia deal with. And I don't think it's something that's just that's just specific to Columbia. I think that there's something about white Southern culture that fucks with it. Like Columbia, outside of a place like Atlanta that embraces black music, Columbia is really specific in the sense of it does a few things. It embraces, what do you call it? It embraces house band music.
House, yes.
Where if you have like, a fucking Wild Wings or something, you have a venue, say, hey, we're going to hire this band and you guys are going to play cover band shit. For 3 hours, you're going to play like Last Dance of Mary Jane with Tom Petty. You're going to do a bunch of covers. That's a part of the culture. Then you have a part of the culture that's like, oh, the black musicians traditionally are church bands. And then a very small percentage are people that make original music. And so what ends up happening is if you do original music in a city like this, you don't really have a platform or a stage to perform on. You got to do cover band shit. And that becomes kind of a problem, because you have a lot of people that say to themselves, in order for me to make music as a musician, I got to play a bunch of shit that's already been recorded. I got to play Tom Petty. You know what I mean? Right. Like I got to play a bunch of,
Right.
And Columbia is kind of a victim of a lot of that stuff that you see, where you have a lot of venues that aren't necessarily embracing original music. They're embracing cover band stuff. So like Wild Wings is like, hey, we might have a stage for you to perform, but performing isn't our first priority. Our priority is to be a bar and a restaurant that happens to have a stage. Not a performance venue. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And challenges the dynamic of your city. Where if you look at like Atlanta, when it comes to black music, you can listen to a black Atlanta radio station and they play nothing but local artists, and all the local artists they play have national platforms. There's something empowering about that. You know what I'm saying? You be like, yo, Atlanta.
Facts.
You be like, hey, here's Atlanta radio station. We play T.I., we play Young Jeezy, we play Killer Mike. You know, we play Migo. Like all the people they play are local,
Right.
and they're all national acts. And people are like, oh, they're only playing on the radio because they're national acts. But your approach could be, well, they're national acts because you have a local platform that supports them. And I think Columbia has kind of a artistic identity that they need to kind of accomplish, especially when it comes to black culture and black music and black art. They don't know who they are. You know what I mean?
I agree.
You know, and so I think it's interesting. And I think it's kind of cool coming to a place like DC, taking notes on black culture here and applying it to South Carolina dynamics, where you go to the African American Museum, where it's an entire museum that's like, yo, we embrace black culture, black American culture, and not only that, there's a value to it, and people will spend money to know about it. And in my city, you know, the local museums there, they're like, oh, here's black culture, but it's a side project. You know, we don't take it very seriously. It's like, okay, we'll tolerate you, but we won't embrace you. It's the idea of saying like, we'll invite you to the dance, but we ain't gonna dance with you. You know what I mean? And those are the conversations that I think are very, very interesting. Where it's like, yo, like I went through the African American Museum, and it's like, yo, this is black culture, and maybe I'm biased because I'm black, but this shit is fucking interesting as hell. And it's American history as hell. And it's like, my city should embrace this concept. My city should not treat black programming as an elective. You know what I mean? Like they treat it like, oh,
I like repeat that again. Repeat.
Don't treat black culture like an elective, right? We should be we should be on your list of stuff that's like the main course with no appetizers. You know, black culture is not an appetizer. You know, and I think that's what it boils down to. You know,
Man, oh my God, so many jewels that just came out of that one
Sprinkle
section.
me.
I'm telling you. Thank you so much. Moments. I told you my favorite moment at ColaCon. What was yours? Because I know you were behind the scenes. I know you were working. I know you were stressed and everything like that, making sure the show and everything went off together. What was your favorite moment?
All right, I got a story for you.
Okay.
It's story time. I don't know how long we've been doing this. Maybe this is the perfect dismount. So doing ColaCon, the first couple of years, we did it at an art museum. And there's cool shit about that, where you have the security of having a facility that embraces it, but there's certain challenges about that, where you basically have a white organization embracing hip hop culture, so they're terrified. So story time. So shout out to Leslie Pierce, my director at the museum that I work with. Rest in peace. She passed away a few years ago. But the idea was, she said this to me. She's like, hey, you're bringing some rapper from Wutang Clan. The board at the museum might be scared about language. The story gets funny. So I convinced the museum, like, yo, don't worry about the language, we'll be good. Because my approach is this. Older white people, when it comes to hip hop, if there's a hip hop concert, they can't hear shit anyway. So if there's a beat going on and somebody's rapping, and even if somebody's saying like filthy shit, you can't hear it. So in my mind, I'm like, yo, yeah, it's all muffled. Like you know what I mean? They don't hear it. So my director was like, yo, we're concerned about language. We don't want the language. I say, oh, he'll be fine. So Ghostface comes, the year where Ghostface is there and Styles P is there. is he's rapping on stage and he's rapping dirty shit. But if you're not looking for the language, you don't hear it. So I'm cool. I'm like, oh, he's rapping? Bro, fuck it. He's over these beats, it's cool. Until Ghostface decides during his rendition of Ice Cream.
I think I know what this is going.
Yeah. He's like, yo, cut the beat, take the beat off. So here comes Ghostface, who's been cursing all night that nobody hears it. My bosses don't hear it because he's rapping over beats and they can't hear it anyway.
Right.
He tells them to take the beat off and he's a cappella. So now, no matter what he says, you hear it with no beat. So Ghostface is like doing the end of Ice Cream. And he's like, yo, bitches get their titties sucked. I said, bitches get their titties sucked. Yo, bitches get their titties sucked. Ice Cream. And I looked and my supervisor did this. Like she, she goes like Home Alone, smacks her face, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, I'm about to get fired.
Yo.
I'm about to lose my job. So I freak out. So here's a story about it. So I'm freaking out, and in the museum, there's a theater in the museum, and I kind of like I'm panicking. I'm having like a panic attack. So like I run into the theater where nobody's at, and I go in there, and I have myself like an ugly cry. Like I go in the theater and I'm like, please, you know, I give myself,
I've been there.
yeah,
I've been there.
I give myself the ugly, you know. So I give myself an ugly cry, and I get it over with, and I walk out the theater. Nobody knows it happened. And one of the security guards, the old black security guard, he coming to me and he says, "Hey, preach," which is funny because I performed that night. And he never seen me like host a show or perform. He said, "Hey, preach." He said, "Hey, man." He said, "You did a great job hosting a performance." I said, "Well, thank you." He said, "Yeah, man, I ain't think you had it in you. I respect you. I got your back." And I said, "Well, thank you." He said, "Yeah, man." And I said to him, "Hey, I'm sorry that the show's taking so long because, like, you know, the museum closed at a certain time, but, you know, rappers show up late, you know?"
Yeah.
So he said this to me. He says, "Hey, man, I'm here. I got you back. We ain't about to be no crybabies about it, are we? We're going to do our job, right?" And I'm like, "Yes, we're no crybabies," right? And so I walk away from him, and shout out to Brittany Bosco, Atlanta singer and artist that I have for Colacon, amazing woman. I love you. She says to me, she's like, "What's up?" And I walk out of this, and I got done crying out of the theater, and I said, I think I'm going to get fired. Because I was an employee at the museum at the time, and she's just like, "What do you mean?" I was just like, like, they were worried about the language, and Ghostface just fucking killed me, right? like, you know, Ghostface just ruined my career here. And she said this to me, and she looked at all the people singing and dancing, and she said, "If you're going to get fired, isn't this the way to get fired?" And I looked at all these people singing, and when she said that, there was this calm that took over me. And I was like, she's right. And as soon as she said that, I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to sing. I'm singing all the songs. I'm in a great mood. Because I'm kind of like, wouldn't that be the greatest story? Like, yo, you got fired? How you got fired? Yeah, I got fired because I brought Ghostface to time. Yo, right?
That trumps anything.
Yeah.
That trumps anything.
Yo, I'm bringing the group that I grew up on, my childhood heroes. I got fired because I brought my heroes into town and they had dirty language. Fuck that. I'm gonna embrace it, you know. And you know the funny thing about it? I got a promotion. son. I swear I was gonna get fired to get a promotion.
Yo,
okay. You know,
that's crazy.
But that was my greatest moment. That's my greatest moment.
Man.
It's like that moment when I'm thinking I'm gonna get fired, and then my friend explains this to me, and that fear leaves you.
Man.
it's pure. I don't know if it's id, but it's just this pure energy of fuck it.
Dang.
Like to operate as an artist under the realm of fuck it. It's the greatest shit ever.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I've been there before.
Yeah.
I remember being up on stage doing the improv show, and I was just like, fuck it.
Fuck it.
Did the greatest show ever.
Exactly. Where you operate under that ethos of no matter what, I'm good. That's where God exists there. Wherever that is, wherever fuck it is, God is in there somewhere.
Showed up at any job and told me that story about Ghostface. I mean, you have it off the bat. Off the bat. I mean, that's wow. That's crazy. So I guess the $1 million question is, and for all the fans and all the subscribers and everybody watching, when are we gonna have another Colicon?
I don't know. And I'm not opposed to doing the event again. I'm opposed to how I was doing it before. Because the problem is that the issue of having like an idea that's your baby is that you're against having help. And I need help. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm like, oh, well, I want to do this my way, and I want to put this on my credit card. I want to bring these artists into town and all type of stuff. The reality is, in order to do something like that, it costs money, you know, to bring hip hop artists, to comic book illustrators, to comic book artists, to put them all together. And in my city, the idea of having programming that's competitive in a national sense, it's not their cup of tea. So in my mind, it's like, I want to do some shit where, you know, I live in South Carolina. I live in Columbia, South Carolina. I find myself always driving somewhere else to go to dope programming. So like, for an example, like Robert Glasper is going to be in Charlotte. He's not coming to Columbia. So I got to drive to Charlotte to see Robert Glasper. Or if there's an event, I'm driving to Atlanta. Or I have to come to African American Art Museum or African American Museum at the Smithsonian. I got to fly to D.C. Columbia, South Carolina has the potential to do the type of programming to make people have that same type of response. Like, yo, oh shit, this program is going here. I have to travel to Columbia to do that. But as far as the help that you would need, whether it's getting money from city government, which I've gotten before, or getting money from sponsorship, which is difficult because a lot of the sponsorship, when they hear that it's hip-hop related or black, they're not going to give you the type of response that you need. You end up saying, all right, well, I'm not getting the funding that I need. Let me pull out my own credit card. And I just can't do that anymore. You know what I mean? Like, my credit score is fucked up. Ladies and gentlemen, if you guys want to help me with my credit score, I have a Cash App at Mo Better Soul. MOBETTA Soul. If you want to send me something,
Right down there below.
Right here.
Right here.
yeah. If you want to send me money to get me a cup of coffee or to pay for some Jordans or to take care of some bills, thank you. But like, as a result of that, you know, I can't do this by myself. And a lot of times with Colicon, I found myself financing a lot of stuff out of my pocket because I understood the importance of it, or I felt like I understood the importance of it. And I thought it was very important and special to the city. And I just found myself exhausting my resources. You know what I mean? And the reality is, it's like, you know, revolutions are cool, but I can't finance that shit by myself. You know what I mean? And so stuff like this, where people are hearing the work that you're doing and hearing the work that you've done, it's more important to say, hey, here's my body of work and stuff that I've done, and get those questions of what would it take to do these things again, I think that if we have a platform that's dope and cool enough, people will say, "What do you need?" And I'm like, "Oh, I need this, this, and this." And somebody's like, "Oh, that's it. I got you." That's more important to me to let people know about the work that I've done, as opposed to having that stress of feeling I have to do it myself, and that's the change. So in order to do Colacan again, I need support, and I need people in a situation that understand the importance of black culture, black music, and hip hop in a city that's constantly ignored it. And going to the African American Museum here in DC gives me great hope because you see the value in that. You see the value of saying, hey, man, you could really, really focus energy, effort, and money in black culture, young culture, hip hop culture. It can be profitable. It can be dope. And people really want to learn about it. You know what I mean? Like you go to that museum and there's hip hop segments that have Ninth Wonder involved, there's like Black Stars in there. You got and you start saying, oh, it's not just me that love this type of hip hop music. There's a slew of people of different cultures, different backgrounds, different races that fuck with this. Let me tap into that. And so to me, these type of things will help do it again. Like these type of podcasts or people hearing this or people like just spreading the word. I think those are the most effective ways to get something like Colacan back up and running again.
Absolutely. And like I said before, I appreciate everything you've done. I know the city of Columbia will appreciate everything you've done. I know all of my friends and the fans of Colacan definitely appreciate everything that you've done in bringing that festival together. When we went to the museum earlier today, after when we left and we were going down, no, this was when we were going upstairs to the final exhibit, you turned to me and you said, hey man, I want to do some dope shit that's going to put some of my art in a museum.
Yeah, exactly.
And during this interview, I was thinking to myself, I was like, in my office right now, I have the Free Times ad for Colacan with a badge and, a pin from there. Mm-hmm. So anytime I have a client that comes through my office, they always look at that piece. And they're like, hey man, what is this? And I go into the story of, hey, this is a hip hop and comic book event that was done in Columbia, South Carolina. And, it was done by this guy named Priest Jacobs. You know what I'm saying? So, everybody that comes through my office hears the story. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And I try to, you see my office, I mirror it like a museum.
Just
so
awesome.
Your legacy will live on. And Colacan will always live on out here. And I appreciate you coming through, my dude.
Absolutely, man.
Appreciate everything you've done.
It's an absolute pleasure, man. I think one of the things that I was teaching in a class at University of South Carolina, and there was this girl that said, what can you do to prolong your message? And I said this to her. I said, be yourself. We always think that it's this extravagant thing you have to do, this elaborate thing you have to do. Nah, just be honest with yourself. And I think that the more that you're honest with yourself and the more that you're who you are, because nobody else can be that motherfucker, that's your contribution to society. And I think that it's society's job to embrace who you are, and if there's value in it, they'll reprocess it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not writing my own eulogy. You know what I mean? Like I'm not writing that shit. It's the people that know me that write that. You know what I mean? It's the people that know the work that I've done that do that. And I think that going to the African American Museum, it's like everybody in that museum, nobody operated under the ethos of, yo, when I do this shit right here, it's gonna be in a museum one day. Mm-hmm. Nobody operated like that. They operated under the idea of like, yo, this is something that I feel it's important to me, this is something that I feel like I need to do, and this is something that I feel like speaks to me in the most honest relationship I have with God. And when you do that, everything else will fall in place. And that's the goal. It's like, all right, well, do your job. Do your fucking job. We got work to do. Whether you're a visual artist, you're a musician, you're a writer, if you're working 9 to 5, anywhere. Do what speaks to you the most. And everything will make sense afterwards.
Man. And on that, I mean,
here's the shoes. Check out the shoes. Oh shit, son. Oh shit. Oh.
the Miles Morales joints. I'm not gonna lie. I've been looking at them all day. Like, damn, this motherfucker got some nice ass shoes on. Like, oh my god, it's the Miles Morales joints. He's got the
I'm broke.
joints
I might sell these motherfuckers after today, but we'll see.
My guy, I appreciate you coming through.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Thank you for coming through and hanging out with us on the couch. I know you've got some work coming out. If you want to plug it real quick, please go ahead.
I have tons of music coming out, so if you want to follow anything that I'm doing, all of my social media is Preach Jacob. So if you go on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, it's at Preach Jacobs. PREACHJACOBS.
Right down here at the bottom.
You can check all that stuff out. So we have music, we have writing. I'm a journalist. I'm more interested in people reading my editorial work than hearing my music, because that's the thing that is kind of like, moving the dial forward. But as an artist, I want people to like listen to what I have to say, even if it's not music form. But I appreciate anybody that listens and pays attention to what we're doing. And if you like this shirt, also,
yes,
I do gear. So mobettasoul.bigcartel.com. You can get some dope shirts, dope hoodies, dope coffee mugs, whatever the case may be. I'm all about black empowerment, black music, black business, black commerce. So any support, we really, really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we appreciate you all for tuning in. This is another episode of the Freedom Cafe Forum for Comics. I'm Hank McDonald. Preach Jacob. My God.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
We out.
Peace.